Hello, George Hepworth, Grover Park Consulting. In this installment, part 3 of our series on using the Google Books API to retrieve information about a particular book from the Google Books catalog in a JSON file, we can then parse into our PowerApps application and save the bits and pieces of information we need into our tables in our PowerApps application. As you can see, I've started the development environment for PowerApps, and I have loaded this particular Power App, and we're looking at the startup screen. Before we dive into the way it works, we need to actually add our new connector. You can see we have 3 connectors set up. The Google Books that we used previously, the Open Library books that we used as a test. We're not going to actually use that, and I will delete it after this video series is finished. And of course, our Azure data storage area, and then the other SharePoint lists we use. In order to add our new custom connector, the one we just created, we need to go to Add Data, and then to the Connectors section. Under the connectors, we see all of the existing and available connectors and custom connectors. And right here, we have the new one that we just created for our test environment here, the YT, or YouTube Google Books connector. So if I select it and then say, yes, I'm going to add it, it is now available in this PowerApps application. And we scroll to the bottom. There it is on the bottom of our list. When we close and reopen, it'll sort back to the top with the others. But now we have it available and we can use it. So let's look at the application itself. We'll run the application, move to the scan page, and you can see we have 2 options. We can either scan or enter. The reason we have 2 options, or one of the reasons we have 2 options, is that the scan only works in the phone environment where you have a built-in barcode scanner. In the browser, we do not have a built-in barcode scanner, so we can't actually run it from here. If we try, we get an error. So we can select the other option, which is to enter it by typing it in directly, and that will then retrieve the book information from the Google Books catalog. Or we can put in the title, and this will do the same thing, except that it uses the book title rather than the ISBN code to retrieve the information. Let's put in a sample title. Grover Park Access. And after it goes out to the Google Books API endpoint, retrieves the information, it comes back, we parse it into the various fields in our, controls in our gallery, which looks at things like title, subtitle, year is published, how many pages, and so on. At this point, I need to do 2 things. One, I need to make sure that all of my genres match up with the genres that I have available. This one came back identified as a computer's book. I classify those as software development. And in a previous version of this testing, I had actually gone ahead and added the Tickling Keys publisher, which was retrieved by Google Books. And if I go and look at my list here, of course, you can see I have previously entered Tickling Keys. So at this point, I'm ready to add my new book to my library, my catalog for my library. I'll make a brief comment about the author. This is actually an array rather than a single value. And for that reason, parsing it out, identifying each of the 1 or more authors for a volume and linking them correctly with the books in PowerApps environment is proving to be a little more complicated than it did on the Access side. So while I can go ahead and link this up through the other mechanism that already exists. I'm really not able in the PowerApps environment to do this automatically at this point. I think I'm going to probably devote some time to figuring out how to go about parsing out the name into first and last names, and then itemizing or cataloging, listing all the ones that are returned as part of this array, and then adding them. But that's all going to take a little more time than I have available right now. So I can do one of two things. I can add and stay on this screen and continue to enter new codes, or I can add and return to the publication screen where I can look at that book. So I'm going to go ahead and hit add and return. And now we'll do a search. Okay, so as you can see, I've actually entered this book twice as previously as a test, and this time is the one I just entered. And now it shows correctly that I have not yet assigned an author to it. So let's go back then and look at the code behind those buttons on this form, on this screen. Okay. Right now, I have two buttons here, one here. We can toggle back and forth between enter and scan. The code is going to be the same on either here. So let's just look. The first thing we do is on the select event, we update a context variable, var ISBN, with the value of the text in the input box. And then we trim it to make sure we don't have any trailing or leading spaces. Then we create, or actually we update a collection. We do use the clear collect to update this collection. The values come, and at this point they're coming from the old connector. This is my custom connector called Google Books, and this is the action exposed by Google Books that actually goes to the API address and retrieves the book information. Passes a query string consisting of the ISBN keyword and the value of the ISBN entered in our text box. If it comes back with multiple rows, and again, as we've commented in the previous video, sometimes we do get multiple items returned as part of that JSON file. So I say if there are items in that, if the gallery does have items populated from this collection, select the first of those items and highlight it and make that the one we're going to work on currently. This will work whether there are one row or multiple rows. This prevents it from actually trying to highlight an empty record. The code is the same here with the difference being that our query string passes in the keyword in title, and it gets the variable for the title from the input title text box. And we just use the update context for that variable, clear the old collection, refresh it. That collection is the item source for our gallery, and it updates itself. And we use the same conditional to decide whether or not that first item should be highlighted for highlighting it, the first item or the only item returned. So in order to then switch to our new custom connector, let's comment out the old one and uncomment the new one. We'll do the same here. And here. And we find the other button, which is the button scan. That's the enter, that's the scan, and we'll do it here as well. Now you will notice that as soon as I cleared out the remaining reference to my book collection, I began to get errors. That's because the gallery now is pointing at an empty collection. So we'll go to the gallery, select the items, and you can see it's now pointing to a non-existent collection. So we'll comment it out and uncomment this one, and that removes our error. So we're ready to go again. So we're back in business with the new custom connector that we just created. So we'll run the app again. This title is still there, so let's just ask for it. And with our new custom connector, we get back the same information. At this point, I can go ahead and edit and continue to request other books, or I can edit and return to my publication list. I'm going to add and return, and this brings us back to publication list where I have previously entered at least one, it looks like, during testing. And with this one selected, notice that some of the fields are not populated because I didn't do that in that quick initial test. I'll do that in my next run through. And there is no author assigned. Let's go back to the scan ISBN, and we'll close here and just look at the code that runs on this item. First thing we do is select two drop-downs that edited for the type and the publication genre, so that we make sure we actually assign values that we use in our patch. So the patch command is the same patch command we've seen in many other occasions. We're going to add a new book to the publication. We grab the title from that field. If there is a subtitle, we concatenate that and append that, put them in. The year published comes from that field, and so on. These are all typical of the way we've done things. And again, I will do this again with the ISBN code and do this more thoroughly. We then rebuild our collection of publications to include the book we just added. So when we go back to the publication screen, it's pre-populated. At the end of that, we just go back to the publication screen and continue working. The other button does almost the same thing, except that it simply resets the gallery, clears the collection, and we're ready to accept a new and different book. So let's run it again. This time we'll use the ISBN code rather than the title. And with this one, I will also make sure that I select the genre, book type, and publisher to add. So I'm going to copy this ISBN off the back of the book. I'm not sure which one of these two I want. Let's try this one. Live demo. Trying things out. Let's hope that it actually, oops, there was a stutter in the keyboard. Okay, hit the enter key. And we get back then the name of the book, the title, year published, and so on, the publisher, a press, We'll go ahead and select software development again. Software development and APress, and I think what I will do, since I don't have APress in my drop-down, go ahead and add APress, and I can just save it because it puts that in as the default. And now when I come back, it should be available, and I can select it, add and return. Will do. And at this point we have the new book. The publisher did not get saved apparently. However, the basic information is here as we want it. So at that point, I believe we have looked at all of the issues that come from using the Google Books API to retrieve a JSON file with basic volume information about books, rather than having to type all this by hand. We can use the API call to preload a lot of the information we need and then clean it up at the end. Once again, I hope you are able to use the information provided in these videos. If you like what you see, please do hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time. Thank you.